I went on Goodreads yesterday just so I could prepare for this video and actually how long it was going to be and how many books doing on this, and I thought it was going to be about 4 or 5. Turns out it was 8. 8 books! How on earth have I read 8 books in a month? Only about a year ago I don't think I'd have even managed 1 book in a month. This has only been since I started reading properly after summer. It's crazy, and it's crazy how much I actually read last month, but let's just get straight into it then, shall we? First of all, I have got Knife Edge by Malorie Blackman. Now, I thought that this was going to be pretty much the same as Noughts and Crosses. It is in terms of the backstory and the racial and controversial elements to it, but it's a totally different story altogether, and I was as hooked as I was on Noughts and Crosses, and it was so emotional, and I felt so attached to the characters, and there was neither character, Sephy or Jude, I wanted to skip the chapters of. I loved each and every character 100%, and this is why I give this book a 5 stars. Secondly, we got Graceling by Kristin Cashore. Now, Katza is our main character in this, and she is a Graceling, and she has a grace, which is a special ability, and her special ability is to kill. Now, I loved the characters in this book. I thought they were absolutely wonderful, and it was one of the main things about this book that I absolutely loved. Even though there was character development, they still stayed true to themselves, which I thought was wonderful, and the relationships between the characters were superb, I thought. And between you and me, I don't actually tend to cry in books, but I cried during this book, so altogether, I'm going to give this book a 4 stars. Next, we have Mockingjay by Suzanne Collins. Now, this is the 3rd and last book in the Hunger Games trilogy. I am very glad it's the last book, because I am fed up of this series going downhill. Hunger Games was amazing. Catching Fire was okay, and Mockingjay was absolutely plain awful, in my opinion. It lacked everything that the Hunger Games did. It lacked excitement, adventure, and just the characters. The characters were so disappointing in this book. I was really upset the fact that Katniss has changed totally from what she was like in the Hunger Games. From being headstrong and not caring about what other people think of her to just being led by everyone and not making decisions for herself, basically. And I thought that was really disappointing, and the only decent character in this book was Peter. It was just interesting, to be honest, and I looked forward to all the scenes that he was in. Don't get me started on the epilogue, please. It was awful. It was not needed. It ended okay-ish, and then the epilogue ruined it. Oh my god, just why was that epilogue even needed? Just 2 stars. 2 stars. Next, we have Eragon by Christopher Paolini. Eragon is our main protagonist, and he finds a shiny blue pebble on the floor when he's out hunting for food for his family. Turns out it isn't a pebble after all, and it's actually a dragon egg, and he gets thrust into the world of the Dragon Riders. Now, this book was wonderfully descriptive, and I could actually see myself in every single place that Paolini described for me. The characters were a bit lackluster for my tastes. They weren't really very strong, and Eragon in particular annoyed me just because of the fact that he was constantly getting himself into trouble. And I know that's a main trait of a main character, but it was just really predictable and not amazing. But overall, I thought the plot was good. It was a well-paced book. There was not one in particular scene or action that was spent too long on. I will give this a 4 stars. The next few books I have on my Kindle. First of all is A Long, Long Sleep by Anna Sheehan. I heard that this was a fairy tale retelling of Sleeping Beauty. Rose has been in a stash tube for about 62 years, and she's just come out of it into a totally different century, pretty much, and everything's changed. You think it's just the simple thing of her fitting into society, but she just finds out so much about her past and her family, and there are so many flashbacks going back to her and her old boyfriend, and it's so emotional, and I felt chilled when I was reading it. If I'd have known that would have been as haunting as it is, I don't think I would have actually picked this up, but I am glad that I did, because it was a different experience to everything that I've read before. I felt so attached to everybody, and it was quite upsetting, the things that actually happened in Rose's past. The realities of the situation, and just seeing her go from being naive and ignorant of everything that had gone on to actually realising what the repercussions of what have actually happened and what had actually happened in her past. I just thought this was an absolutely brilliant book. I'm so glad that I picked this up. I didn't know anything about this book before I picked it up. I think I read something on Goodreads about it, but that was about it. And I will give this a big 5 stars because I thought this was absolutely brilliant. Next is Insurgent by Veronica Roth. It literally carries straight on from Divergent. I thought that aspect of the book was really great, but everything else was stupid. Tris was the most stupidest character I have ever read in my life. She was always putting herself into stupid situations, no matter what the empty threat, no matter what everyone kept on telling her to do, she just did it, despite everything, and it really bugged me. Oh my goodness, I was going through every single page wanting to punch her in the face. The only good thing about this book I found was the fact that you got to see into each faction's compounds and actually know what each of the faction are like and their personalities and how they actually are reacting to everything that's going on. But overall, Tris, and just the fact that the plot was awful because of Tris and her decisions, I'm giving this a 2 stars because it really doesn't deserve any more than that. Next is Matched by Ali Condé, and I can honestly say that I did not finish this book. I got about 100 pages in and could not stand it. It was awful, it was too simple, the characters were boring, and the plot was boring and predictable, and oh my goodness, I just could not read it. There were too many unnecessary flashbacks. I could go on and on and on, and I just got bored instantly in this book. I tried as hard as I could to read on, but I just couldn't because it was so boring. And I've probably said boring about a million times now, but that is what it is. And for that reason alone, I am giving this a 1 star because of the fact, just because. Lastly, we have Cinder by Marissa Meyer. Now, we are definitely ending on a positive note with this one. This was amazing. It's actually a fairy tale retelling of Cinderella, and generally in retellings, they are only slightly different from the original fairy tale themselves, but this one is a totally different story altogether, with little snippets that remind you that it still is a fairy tale, like the prince and the ball that they go to, for example. The characters in this were amazing, and like fairy tales, you tend to hate and love certain characters. I absolutely loved Cinder and Kai, and absolutely hated, despised the stepmother and stepsisters. I don't think I've hated someone for just being themselves in a story so much. All the characters are believable, realistic, and I just love them. And I love the fact that Cinder, although staying true to herself, developed throughout the book. She was shy and reserved and wasn't quite sure what to do with herself at the beginning, and then she turned out to be this strong character. It was a gradual thing throughout the book, and it wasn't like a slow-paced book or anything. It was wonderfully paced, and I just loved the relationship between Cinder and Prince Kai. I just always found myself fangirling every single time there was a scene with them in. I found myself really looking forward to the next scene with them in, but this was an absolutely amazing book, and I just cannot recommend it enough to everybody, and I'm so excited yet so gutted that the second book in this series doesn't come out until February. Overall, I am giving this a massive 5 stars. So that was all the books that I read in October. I am currently reading Delirium by Lauren Oliver, and this is great so far, if not a little wordy for my likings, but I am loving this. And if you have any opinions on any of the books that I've read in October, then I'd love to hear your thoughts below, and I will see you sometime soon. Bye!